talking about them. Let's talk with them. Two newly elected and one second-term elected Board of Aldermen. Jack Coder, St. Louis Board of Aldermen from the 7th Ward.
That's correct.
Kara Spencer from the 20th Ward. And Scott Ogilvie, just re-elected for his second term of the 24th Ward.
Hey, Casey.
Can I just set something straight for the record here? Is it Alderman Kara Spencer or Alderwoman?
I'll go by both.
That did not set it straight for the
Well,
record.
okay, for the record, I would prefer alderman.
Okay, and because that's the traditional name, I believe. Is that right? Okay, all right. Well, we'll come back to that. What I asked the two reporters who follow you guys, let me ask you, what does your election signal, Alderman Spencer?
Well, for me, I think what's significant about the race in the 20th Ward, I ran a pretty grassroots campaign. I don't have any political background. In fact, my background is in mathematics, a completely seemingly unrelated field, although there's a lot of overlap. I did strategic market modeling. But I don't have a political background, so as a single mom, as a real resident, just a community member, I think it signals a voice of just a regular person, really. And I'm really proud of that. In the 20th Ward, we've also had historically really low voter turnout. And with this last primary, we were able to turn out almost 50% more over the last primary. And then again, in the general, we turned out even more people. So we've really energized a ward that has been somewhat forgotten in some ways. We have a tremendous amount of crime and other problems down there, so it signifies a new beginning.
Remind us
really
the 20th Ward, kind of the general boundaries.
So we're also sort of unique in that we have somewhat definable boundaries in that we are Cherokee Street on the north side going down, Chippewa runs down the middle of it, down to about Merrimack, with Grand and Jefferson Broadway being the eastern border.
Am I making too much? Are we making too much of the fact that you're young and exuberant, or is there some? What does your election signify?
Casey, we had a slightly different situation in the 7th Ward, where the incumbent of 29 years, on her own accord, retired. Mm-hmm. She had decided
Phyllis
that
Young.
Phyllis retired and decided it was time to hand the reins to the younger generation. And in my race, we had 3 young candidates. I, in fact, was the oldest candidate, 29 years old. So the voters had 3 options, all young, all very energetic, and I think that's what it's going to take to represent the 7th Ward, which is a very big, diverse ward with a lot of great historic neighborhoods and a big business community downtown. So,
Scott, what do you know now that you didn't know when you were in their position about how city government works or does not?
Everything, Casey. What I know now, I mean, I know who to call, who can actually deliver a result when you need something done. I also kind of know the day-to-day frustrations that you face. I always view St. Louis as this place with sort of unlimited potential, but you're always frustrated by some of the slow progress. And you also learn that you need a ton of patience to see sort of public works projects through. There's no shortage of good ideas on things we can do, but there's a real sort of a nightmare of different agencies you have to go through in order to implement something that may seem very, very straightforward at first. So you got to be...
And a lot of aldermen, too.
You got to be patient. For now, we're losing half of them in a few years, but yes, it's still 28.
Are you feeling any of that frustration yourselves already?
I can say for me personally, I've had the benefit of a month to sort of start to understand how city government works. I had a very competitive primary race and was fortunate to run unopposed in the general. So I spent the last month sort of going to meet with various department heads and trying to figure out how government actually works, who you got to call when you need to get a problem fixed. But it's a big system. It's a lot bigger than I even realized before I got into this. There's a lot of layers of bureaucracy to get through.
If someone looks at 3 fashionable young people, they might think, okay, great, your priorities are food trucks and bike lanes. Not that there's anything wrong with either of those, but whether it's as bad as the perception, we have a crime problem in this town. Where does that fall on your list of priorities? I'll open it up to all 3 of you.
I mean, I'll be honest, it's one of my top priorities, absolutely. We have a huge crime issue in the 20th Ward. Crime is increasing at staggering rates, whereas citywide, our crime rates have been pretty steady. I think that's something that our city should be proud of. But when we see burglaries up by 50% in some of our neighborhoods and person crime's up significantly as well. We really have a lot of work cut out for us. You know, in the 20th ward, we have a lot of vacant houses. They really contribute to, you know, activities that lend themselves to crime, and so we're going to start tackling crime right off the bat. We really also have, you know, we just came through a wave of hotspot policing in the 20th ward, which it sets some members of the community, you know, we have some issues of trust with our police department, which we really need to work through together. And I think having some really positive interactions is going to set us on the right path for that.
Downtown has not been immune by any means.
No, by no means. I mean, public safety was the dominant issue in the 7th Ward campaign. And my phone, every time it rings, it seems to be an issue relating to public safety to this day. I'm encouraged by some of the steps the police department's taken, some new leadership downtown with the opening of the Real-Time Crime Center, which I had an opportunity to tour today. The city's finally going to get into, I guess, some modern policing tactics where you can start linking private cameras and public cameras to keep a better eye on what's happening, particularly downtown. Because in the end of last year, I mean, we saw a big spike in robberies in downtown and downtown west and in the historic neighborhoods just south of downtown. Makes some sense because that's where the most, you know, people walking around, going to restaurants, hanging out late at night are, but we can't have that. If people don't feel safe downtown, that's a big problem, not just for the 7th Ward, but for the whole city and region.
Optimistic, skeptical of some of the things we're trying, the
Well,
police
I mean,
department's
the
trying to do?
24th Ward, luckily, has done very well. Crime is really substantially down across the board over the last 5 years. Nonetheless, I think it is, you know, it's the perennial top issue in the St. Louis region. And there's really no silver bullet way to fix this. I mean, we have generational concentrated poverty and tremendous vacancy, tremendous lack of opportunity, tremendous lack of continuity within the school system for a lot of young people. And you need to tackle crime. You know, I think a real-time intelligence center, we might catch some people sooner, but the real way to fix crime is to start much earlier, and that's going to take a generation of effort to really make progress.
Yet more people may be talking about the NFL. Do you guys support a vote of the people to decide whether or not we, in the mayor's words, extend revenue that's already coming in? He doesn't consider it new revenue, new taxes. Do you support, should the people vote on that? And regardless of that, you guys will have a vote on it, it sounds like. Would you vote for it? Should we be putting money in that direction?
Well, I'll just say, right now we don't know what we'd be voting for. There's been absolutely zero communication between anybody advocating for a new stadium and the Board of Aldermen itself, at least that I'm aware of. So I would have no idea what I would be voting on right now. I will say that it's a city ordinance that not just new taxes, but any financial assistance to a professional sports facility needs a vote, needs voter approval. That's been a city ordinance since 2002. It was put on the ballot by an initiative of citizens, and citizens approved it. So that's the city ordinance. I think there's no reason we shouldn't follow that ordinance. It's the will of the voters. If it's a great package, voters may very well support it. But I think it's a very, certain people have got off on the wrong foot. You know, the Dome Authority is sort of suing to invalidate that ordinance. I think that's really an embarrassing, terrible approach for a public agency to take.
Thoughts? Is it unfair to ask you how you would vote having not been in office yet?
I agree wholeheartedly with Scott on this. I think we should put it to the vote of the people, absolutely.
Well, Scott's exactly right. We don't know what we're voting for at this point, so I couldn't say one way or the other how I'll vote. But what I will say is I support following the law. So if the courts uphold this ordinance and it requires a public vote, we should have a public vote. If the courts throw out the ordinance and there's some other way to finance this stadium, I'll support that. I'm a big proponent of the stadium, of revitalizing the riverfront, and most importantly, of getting the Rams out of the Edward Jones Dome and the Americas Center. Because the Americas Center needs a lot of work. There's a lot of improvements that need to be done to that facility. That's a place that can generate a lot of money for the city and for the region and put heads in beds and put people in the restaurants. And so if we can get the Rams and maybe a soccer team or a new football team and a new riverfront stadium and get more convention business, I think it's a win-win.